Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever online popular music pedagogy program information session. I'm so happy to be here with you today, and we are going to dive into the program and really get to know all of our faculty that we have as our panelists today in this online session. Before we get started, though, we do have a couple of housekeeping items to go over. So the information session is roughly going to go about 30 minutes in length. This is being recorded. Our enrollment advisors will be answering any questions, so please go ahead and submit those through the Q&A. And should you want to speak to anybody, you have our phone number right there and the live chat. They're available for live chat as well through the through the link right here provided for you. Okay. So without further ado, let's get into it. I want to present our amazing panelists, and I can't do them justice, so I'm going to let them do it for themselves. Reina, can you kick us off? Tell us a little bit about you, what you do at Frost, University of Miami, you online. Tell us what it is that you do at Frost School of Music, please.
Sure. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Reina Murnak. I am the studio director of contemporary voice and performance artistry, and also the program director of this lovely new program, Popular Music Pedagogy. As a performer, I have done all sorts of performance in my life. I've worked in various aspects of the performance music industry and coaching arena, and I'm really excited to be here with you.
Thank you for that, Reina. And let's just go in order. Brian, tell us a little bit about you.
How you doing? My name is Brian Russell. I am a native South Floridian. I have been teaching popular music since about 1999 when I was teaching guitar and bass in high school. I run the contemporary guitar studio here at Frost, and I will be teaching the third week or the third segment of the popular music methods course, running through guitar and bass methods.
Thank you, Brian. Ray, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ray Sanchez. I am the Associate Dean for Strategic Initiatives and Innovation at Frost. I'm also on the faculty of the Department of Music, Media, and Industry, and I am probably responsible for a lot of this since popular music came out of the Bruce Hornsby Creative American Music Program, of which I was the founder 15 years ago. I'm also a founding member of the Association for Popular Music Education. And in my career, been completely centered around popular music as a musical director, guitarist, producer, and more. So I'm really thrilled to see this program, the first of its kind, really taking seriously the study and the study of the pedagogy around music, popular music. This is something we've been working very hard with this team here for many years, and we're very glad to be sharing it beyond the walls of the physical Frost School of Music.
Thank you for that, Ray. And last but certainly not least, Dan.
Hi, everyone. Daniel Strange here. Thrilled to be part of this session. I am the Assistant Professor of Contemporary Keyboard at Frost, and I serve as the Made Degree Program Director for our undergraduate students. I also direct our flagship ensemble in the contemporary program, the American Music Ensemble, more known as AME in our circles of acronyms. And I've had a really unique path as a musician, classically trained, studied jazz mostly in college with commercial studies on the side, have performed in all of those genres, have always been more of a contemporary pop musician throughout life with training from my family members and my mentors, teachers, friends. So I've worked in a variety of fields in the music business, and I am also thrilled to share our collective knowledge, our collective experience, and our strategies for future educators looking to dive into this sphere.
Thank you so much for that, Dan. And thank you to all the panelists. And I did not introduce myself. My name is Andrea Jimenez, your fearless facilitator for this info session. I am the Frost Online Director of all programs in terms of the online division of Frost School of Music here at the University of Miami. So again, we appreciate you being here with us. So without further ado, panelists, let's get into it. Raina, we'll start with you. You told us a bit about what you do at Frost. Beautiful. Tell us a little bit about your academic background, and just your career professional experiences, and how it really got you to this place and influenced your path into popular music pedagogy as an educator, and also as an artist, and anything else you want to fill us in with, please.
Sure. Well, like Dan, I studied classical music because basically that was your option. If you were a singer in any genre, you did not have any jazz training, which I think is kind of rare. That really is something that either your parents introduced to you, or a teacher brings that kind of music to you. Most singers like myself were then thrust into a classical degree, which it was a wonderful education. I actually went all the way through my doctorate doing classical composition and vocal pedagogy. Then I was teaching basically right out of college, and realizing that so much of the way I was teaching music theory connected more with students when I was bringing in popular music examples, and it was just immediately accessible to them. And so I started doing this informally in all of my theory classes and developing methods way before we had a contemporary area here at Frost, just really merging those worlds. At the same time, I was running a songwriting program and through a summer camp here at Frost. And I realized that my composition students, when I gave them the option to write a song instead of a composition, they started more and more choosing songs. So kind of concurrently with the development of our Bruce Hornsby songwriting Creative American Music minor, I was developing that in the summer camp. And then along the way, I ended up, as we developed a contemporary or popular music program, I started leaving the classical side of theory and coming into this side to develop some theory initiatives. And also the entire time outside of Frost, I've been an active performer. When I say I've performed in every genre and every kind of thing, I really have. Everything from the most classical opera to the most avant-garde New York new music, to the most Vegas style casino show, to rock bands, to corporate events. I've done and tons of studio work. So I've, as a vocalist, just worked. So developing the vocal program here at Frost was a huge passion of mine. But seeing that there is a hole where students graduate with these bachelors pretty much across the board, and so many of the jobs want a terminal degree. Well, a terminal degree technically in this field is the bachelor's. So this degree is going to serve as a new bar of a terminal degree. This is finally a degree that's very specifically tied into popular music pedagogy. So, having this wide swath of different perspectives and just being in a place where I really wanted to put something together that was very meaningful and sort of brings it all together. And the gentlemen on this call know that our students are so talented, and they're just so able to do so many things so quickly. And that's part of the training. They learn to be that, well-rounded. And we all know that if they had another degree to go on to where they could continue that education, and so many of them end up teaching anyway, even if they're performers, teaching is such a valuable thing. We all really felt like this was the natural next step.
Thank you for that, Raina. Appreciate it. Ray, can you give us an answer to that question as well? Your academic background, career, your profession, essentially, and how it led you to this path as an educator.
Yeah. So that's a great question, because it all starts at the very beginning. When I first got interested in music, I learned music through two completely different parallel paths at the same time. I started in elementary school on the trombone and went through all the traditional pathway, band and orchestra in high school, played in jazz band, on and on. By high school, I knew I wanted to be a professional musician. But around the same time, actually a little later, in 7th grade, someone gave me a guitar, and I started learning guitar also the traditional way, from friends in the hallways, jamming in basements and garages, and any information I could pick up from somewhere. I maybe took lessons twice before college, but it wasn't a thing. Most guitar players at that time, and still today it's YouTube. Today it's all these other sources, but there's and in all fairness, there are much better resources for private lessons, things like School of Rock and things like that. They didn't have that in my time. If you were going to study privately, it was going to be classical. And I don't play classical on the guitar, although I was playing classical on the trombone as well. So going into college, I decided to make the guitar my principal instrument, because the professional life that I wanted in music involved recording, involved writing, involved playing, all these things. And I just figured the guitar was a much better choice, even though I was a better trombone player going into college. That's kind of the background. So in college, I am a theory composition major with a jazz guitar principal. Well, that was an odd combination, still is in these days, but especially in my time in the mid to late 70s or the 80s. It was almost unheard of, and literally the only school at that time where I could do that well was at the University of Miami. And so I'm an alum from there. I started working professionally while I was in school because I had this very unique skill, as guitar players go, the ability to not panic when they put a piece of music in front of me and actually understand what's there and respond to it. So I began my professional career and was fully self-employed in the music business almost 25 years. Before I set foot in a classroom, I made a career change. Teaching is my second go around, like I like to say, as many people in my field do when you want to focus on other things in life, your family, you don't want to be on the road all the time. So in my case, I love teaching, and I realized very quickly that this was my path. So that presented some interesting things, because I start working first at community college and then later at the University of Miami. And now I get to see the music school in a very different way than when I was a student, because now I have all this real world experience. By the way, in between, produced a lot of records, toured major artists, played huge venues, every major venue in this country, and in Latin America and Europe and other things. So, when I'm looking at the curriculum, I'm like, okay, I get it, but these kids are going to have to learn a whole lot of other things before they can be successful. So the first course I created at the University of Miami when I was hired at the Frost School was Entrepreneurship for Musicians, which is going to be a course that will be offered in this degree program. It's still happening. It's the course that I didn't have when I was in school that I wished I had. It's the how to actually build your own career and understand all the things that you have to do. But fast forward, thing that always concerned me was the disconnect, particularly with music theory and musicianship skills, what we used to call ear training back in the day. Quite honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that I played guitar, and by that very nature, I have to, more than half of what I do in my professional situation is working by ear. You have to, because people aren't writing out every note for you. In fact, it's extremely rare. I would say more than half, probably 80, 90% of what I do is by ear. So when we started the Hornsby program, we knew we needed to make a change. Prior to that, there was no way to get into our music school if you played a quote unquote non-traditional instrument, which included things like the acoustic guitar, which it's bizarre to say that's a non-traditional instrument, but it is for most music schools. And I'm not talking classical guitar, I'm talking steel string acoustic guitar as your principal primary instrument. So we built the infrastructure for our songwriting minor to embrace this thing we call contemporary performance, which now includes voice, of course, guitar, bass, drums, keyboards, and we became the first school to embrace contemporary media, which is laptops, push controllers, alternate controllers, like one I happen to have right here in my little studio in my room where I'm spending the summer. We also have contemporary strings, and the fundamental difference between that and what we're doing and say our colleagues in classical or jazz is that our students come from very different places. They mostly or don't necessarily come through the traditional band, choir, and orchestra pathway. These great colleagues that we have on this call have been with me almost since the beginning. Brian actually was there at the very, very beginning, and the other two came along later, but their contributions have been invaluable in developing and formalizing a way of teaching these types of students. And our little secret that now the world will know is that when you have students that are highly musically sensitive, they just don't necessarily speak the traditional language, it's far easier to bring them to the point where they can collaborate with their colleagues than the other way around, because they already have internalized what we're always trying to accomplish with music students. And our job is, as Dan Strange here said to me once, oh, our job is basically to teach them music. And so that's kind of the big picture. I'm going a little long because I'm going to have to leave this recording in a little bit. So just kind of saying what I feel I need to say, but the others are going to jump on this, and because they've been part of this process. Being able to offer this degree program now at the graduate level for students that are for professionals, because are really the people that we're hoping to reach are people already in the teaching professions where they feel lost, they don't understand, they have these kids they know are talented, but they don't know how to reach them, they don't know how to deal with them. Okay, we've been doing this now for quite a while, very well, and we're just very happy and thrilled to be able to offer it in this format.
Ray, thank you for that. That was
all right.
that was awesome. We appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.
Dan, thank you. Dan, Ray mentioned you. So if you could tell us a little bit of answer the same question in your path as an educator in popular music.
Oh, wow. I think it was a natural transition. When I first got hired to teach as a part-time, I have to be honest, I had no intention of teaching. I finished graduate school. I was ready to, work with some, musicians, singers, Broadway singers I'd been working with, start playing shows, hit bands, do the natural pathway, and just kind of put it all together in the multiple, income strategy, that you get out of school. You're like, all right, I guess I got to wear a lot of hats because the one thing's not going to do it. And I got a phone call asking if I would teach an ear training class. And I said, well, how often does it meet? Well, it's a couple days a week. No, just no pressure. Just, you obviously have a handle on this. Would you like to share with our students, what you're going to be, trying to connect the dots for? So that first year, I can remember there was sort of it was a jazzier training class, but what I can remember a lot about it was the students were listening to what I was listening to. And at the time, there was this sort of transition that was happening with more fusion, indie rock, alternative sounds that had maybe some jazz construction in their harmony. Groups like Snarky Puppy were making their way, onto the scene. And we were diving into that in the class, as opposed to maybe some of the more traditional literature that you would teach from. And what I found was, I said, well, hey, they're grabbing this from, this live record that I heard of the Dave Matthews Band. Check this out. Listen to the comparisons. And so I started to figure out, there's more to teach than I thought from what would be considered pop music. And I would jump on what Ray was saying about the theory aspect about it. That was the crucial sort of synergy that I was seeing in this ear training class. And I think what happened, especially with the jazz students, is that where they were interested, they could hear harmony really well, they could improvise, they could do that, but they started to make connections on the fundamentals that had it sort of soak in better. And they started to apply them. They started to write. And we all, the three of us, experienced the major culture shift, I would say, over the last 5 to 6 years in all the areas of the school, possibly, because of CAM existing and the idea of the creating music again, coming back to the basics of the core classical composers who not only were phenomenal musicians, but obviously they were writing their music. So that change has happened throughout the school. And as an educator, I was like, there's really something here. I think there's room at the table for pop elements in music education. I didn't know at the time what it would look like. Fast forward about 3 to 5, probably 3 or 5 years later, somewhere in that window, and we all start to really decide what this is going to be. We work on the MAID degree. We put it officially into the curriculum through that. And then we really start to separate, okay, what works in the traditional element, what influences of the jazz models have taken place, and what kind of dots can we connect at the core, being fans of kind of everything. And I think that was where I really started to cook, if you will, as an educator, because I realized that if I'm going to teach the pop students, I have to connect the dots with the ways that they can identify, because usually they're writing songs, they don't necessarily know what they're writing in terms of the theoretical elements, but they just know it works. And so once you start explaining to them why it works and here's how you can enhance it, the sky's the limit for those students, because again, they have the creative nature first. So I think that the creativity into the theoretical analysis and oral transcriptions have really made, that was the big difference for me as an educator. That's why I felt like, okay, I really have to continue this, and I can find a way to sort of get them thinking and hearing and writing and analyzing at a very high level, using the literature that they are first and foremost, listening to and emulating, but also while bringing in the other elements and making it sort of an equal playing field with their path being pretty set.
Thank you, Dan.
I think that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely great. I mean, it speaks to what's going to happen at the graduate level with this program. So fantastic. Thank you. And Brian, please give us your answer. And we have got a couple of questions already in the chat. So please go ahead.
Great. So, well, I started playing guitar in 7th grade. I was brought up by MTV. So I realized that really school, the curriculum in junior high, what it was called back then, and high school really didn't serve guitar players unless you really wanted to play classical guitar. So I interacted with that, and I did the best I could being a guitar player in the traditional paradigm. I joined jazz band, so I was the guitar player for jazz band, and I joined Tri-Am. I was the president of Tri-Am somehow. Then I went to school. I went to the Frost School of Music. It was just called the UM School of Music back then. And I majored in music education, and we only had a choice of jazz or classical. So I made the choice because I was a rock guitar player. Really, I was like, fine, I'll do jazz. And I spent the next 20 years chasing the jazz dragon, gigging and playing with various artists and recording in jazz. And of course I started to write, but then my rock roots, of course, started to rear its beautiful head again later on in my career. I started teaching middle school after college, all with this idea going through college as a music education jazz emphasis major. So I was a jazz performance major, sort of, with a music education major. And with this idea that I wanted to go back through the education system and expose students to the things that I really wished were there. So instruction in improvisation, instruction in songwriting, instruction in just how to be a performer and things like that. So I wound up teaching middle school, and I ran a band, keyboard, and chorus program for 3 years. So that was the traditional thing. I did my best at being a conductor and a chorus teacher. And I saw the issues with that, and I also saw the strengths of the original paradigm. So I took the strengths of that, and I took over a guitar program at a high school for about 6 years after that. And that's where I really got, and that was about 1999. I got the chance to really open up my ideas for contemporary instruction. It was a class of 43 guitar players, essentially. By the time I was done, it was 212 students per day. And I was running a full songwriting program in the third level of the class. So I had about 43 songwriters per year writing original songs. And really, this whole idea was to focus students on the music that they wanted to play and that they were already listening to. Fast forward, I started doing my master's and my PhD, and my advisor actually said, you know what, you really got to show other teachers how to do what you're doing, how to build what you're doing, because that would be your best influence. So I'm really here in this pop music methods, and I've been here at Frost to not only influence students on how to grow as a musician in a healthy way, but also in this course, I wanted to help influence the educators who are currently in service, people who are currently in the trenches, and you get sometimes thrust into these situations by an administrator or by just necessity, just maybe by population, and people. There's so much null curriculum involved in this, so much involved that is really not mentioned. And especially when it comes to contemporary music, you start to look around and there's really not a whole lot of resources. So for the professional educator who already knows how to lesson plan and who already knows about curriculum and who already knows the idea about why we're in a classroom, and maybe it's a private lesson, maybe it's a classroom of 40. It's the strategies are basically still the same if you're looking at it kind of from a philosophical standpoint of teaching students how to become musicians without necessarily going through the traditional paradigm of jazz and classical music, and but of course still using contemporary music to draw all of those materials together. So because I look at jazz as part of the contemporary paradigm, just as the early contemporary paradigm. So
Brian, thank you so much for that. So in terms of those questions, which kind of seamlessly pulls into what you were talking about, Brian, in our courses, Raina, let's get into it. In terms of our courses, our overall curriculum, what makes this online popular music pedagogy program different in terms of the skills that our students will gain and how it will benefit them in the community of music educators that they serve, that they are in, excuse me. So in terms of courses, overall curriculum, what makes us different? Key skills.
Well, overall curriculum, we're only, so that makes us different right there. So, where we are the only fully online degree. And for everything that my colleagues have said, it is meant to the most efficiently serve those who are out there and teaching and maybe can't leave their life to move to a city to study, on the boots on the ground at an institution. This allows the students so much flexibility to take these courses at their own pace. In terms of the content, it really reflects sort of the spirit of the MADE program that, we all sat in a room together and came up with this years ago. And we believed that students can't just learn musicianship skills. They have to learn the entire landscape around, the ecosystem around what that means, which includes heavy music business knowledge, heavy technology knowledge, heavy, understanding how these parts fit together. So you shouldn't just be a myopic singer. You need to be a singer who's willing to accompany yourself on guitar, bass, piano, drum set, whatever that is. So we really have infused a lot of the philosophy of our undergraduate on-campus MADE program into this graduate degree. And why? Because so many of the undergraduate degrees out there that are our competitors are also adopting a lot of these philosophies, infusing their courses with a lot of the things that we started here at MAID. And so, in terms of the core, there is a popular music pedagogy and administration course, which takes some of the typical pedagogy and admin elements of a degree in the more classical or jazz arena and really puts the popular music aspect of it. We're all teaching the methods course. Dan Strange is going to do this amazing music theory pedagogy, of which he's like a master at this. So you're getting to learn from these people who are just doing this at the top of their game. And I think something that we all have in common is our ability to never feel like the statue, the clay is dry. Like all of us have so many conversations. We run into each other in the hall, in the physical halls, not the digital halls. And we're always asking each other, how do we make this better? What can we do? What are the students bringing to us? How are we updating this? And we're bringing a lot of that mentality to the pedagogy of teaching popular music. We want to really prepare people to realize that this is a moving target. This is not something you're going to learn in your undergrad and graduate degree, and then you're done. It's an ever-evolving field that as educators, you have to be prepared to be maybe the least expert person in the room in the genre that just popped out. So, there's a comfort and discomfort in what we do. And I think that as people who have been doing this solidly for many, many years, and seeing the results of students who are out there in the field just doing their thing with confidence, I think that we were the right school to bring this to the online platform.
Thank you for that, Raina. Dan, can you talk to us a little bit about your course? Anything you want to give our audience about in terms of the theory and the importance that they need in this course?
Oh man, I'm not going to give away too much. You got to take the
Just a little
course,
bit,
but,
little bit.
Well, one of the things in teaching musicianship and in theory, I mean, my course, the sophomore level is what I teach currently. And again, some of the trial and error I spoke about earlier has made its way into the course in a sort of pedagogical shifting of the roles per se. One thing I do a lot, and I'm working on many ways to do this in the online setting, is I have a lot of breakout sessions where I will write something or pre-write something before my class gets there. I'm going to turn the board around. Here's your project. We've been talking about this. You've been studying it. You've been working on it in the keyboard lab. I go around the room, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. You pair up groups. There's groups of 4 or 5 students, and they hand in whatever they hand in at the end of the 50-minute session. So that's some of the things. Why I bring that up is because that's such an important element in learning how to apply the knowledge. I think that is sometimes the missing piece in the traditional setting, is that you're getting through the coursework, you're getting through the topics, but the application is not enough, in my humble opinion, and I'm sure my colleagues will agree, in terms of when you go to create something. So we're hoping in many ways that somebody who has dabbled into, even if they haven't dabbled into their own songwriting or composition, if they've started to arrange something as simple as changing a key for a song that they perform or sing, doing that kind of application with some of the skill sets I teach, that I will show professionals or educators how I teach them, and going through that breakout session where there's that interaction, or that sort of, this is what you have to hit these points. It tells me so much about where the learning is, because otherwise I'm taking temperatures only through quizzes, homework assignments, and exams. Those are fine. They all work. But I think that unexpected nature of getting something after, going down a certain path of curriculum and realizing, okay, I have to take the elements of what we've been doing versus stuff that I may or may not know versus something that I can apply based on some of my experiences. I think that's going to be something really crucial for people when they see how I pace the way my students learn, that pacing of that, application. But that's a really important piece, is the application.
Thank you for that, Dan. And getting into some of the questions, since we're wrapping up very soon here, and thank you everyone for all this, for this lively discussion. Brian, can you, let's talk a little bit about the industry and how have you seen it changing essentially? And how does this program fit well to really give those individuals wanting to dive into this master's degree online the knowledge necessary to keep up with our ever evolving music industry, but particularly in the popular music contemporary setting? And that question will go for Raina and Dan, and then we'll wrap up. Go ahead, Brian.
Hey, well, since this course is really, in this program is really kind of geared towards people who are looking to educate someone else, whether it be singularly or within a group. My perspective on how the industry has changed, I mean, the traditional paradigm, between me and thousands of people on this Zoom call, I feel like the traditional paradigm is kind of dying on the vine, if you will. We need some new. We need to basically revive it, and one way to do that is to innovate it. And one way to innovate that is to really empower the students. And I feel that this program really helps, it is really geared towards educators and people who want to be in education, who would like to understand how to have their finger on the pulse of what's going on with students now. And I think that's really the key to contemporary music and the industry, is understanding the folks who are coming up through the system now. What are they feeling and what are they into, and how can we use what they're interested in to educate them to not only be better musicians, but better consumers of music? Because we are creating, if we think that we're not part of the industry in creating the industry, we're creating consumers, we're creating educated consumers. If we're complaining about the quality of pop music right now, it's because the consumers aren't necessarily educated, I feel. So if we start to, and there has been a lull in music education, if we really think about it, because what are we teaching them? We're teaching them how to march, and we're teaching them how to do things that are really super great in the 18th and 19th centuries. But we're in the 21st century now, and I think what we need to do is add to that, because education and music education is an additive and dynamic process, where it's eclectic, where we need to take from the old to create the new. So I think what's been missing in music education and the music industry, honestly, has been having a finger on the pulse of what's going on now, and the ability to make it eclectic by giving students an outlet for creating something new. And I think the hallmark of contemporary music is creativity, whether it's improvisation or composition. It's all in the same continuum. It's all about creativity. So that's what I think we're dealing with.
Beautiful. That was amazing. Dan, I'm going to go to you because I want to end with our program director, Raina. Dan, same question for you. Industry, how you see it changing, how it's been changing, and how essentially this degree is going to really prop us up to keep up with what's going on in the music industry world and popular music.
It changed while we were on this session. And that's kind of a joke, but it's in all seriousness. Daily, there are new opportunities for our students. Not only opportunities that come their way, but opportunities that they create. So being creators of music is enabling them to have those career path choices that now aren't so, make sure you take this lane or that lane. Again, they're building their exits, their routes, if you will, to sort of do a map analysis. I mean, think of the jobs that are out there now, and this was maybe the illusion, or nobody made clear to me the many paths that you could take. as a musician. And I think about, what students are doing, what many of us do, we might consider our quote unquote side hustle, but actually we feel that we're just as qualified in those fields. People who produce, people who have their own private studios, work as a teacher, full part-time, arts management, community programs, in broadcasting, film and television, agents, talent, you name it in those career paths. I think what's important about this program is it gives professionals and particularly educators maybe a little insight as to what's happening. As Brian mentioned, the pulse of what's going on. The three of us and all our other colleagues are all continually working in the business. And that's one of the secret formulas maybe that we have, that other schools might just not quite be there yet, because we're keeping an eye on not only what our students are doing, but we're also actively doing it. And so we're hoping that some of the things we might say in some of these courses and dive into and tweak when we need to, because of the online nature of the course, will help maybe some people who are like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was a possibility. Like some of the things I might show in my keyboards aspect will not be deep dives, but just sort of, oh, and by the way, if you have this kind of, if your school calls for putting a musical band together, you can run this program and have multiple keyboard players take care of business for you while you put your winds together and all. I think we're just going to be able to say things that won't be drawn out, but be enough to spark something, again, in particular with educators, to be like, wow, there's a lot of paths that I can guide my students towards, and now I know about them that I never had any idea existed. I think that's tremendously important.
Thank you, Dan, so much. It's super important, the innovation and then that mentorship aspect that you're speaking on, and that's what I'm feeling, and I love that you bring that up, so I appreciate it. Raina, question for you in terms of the industry, are they changing? And tie in if you can, because it ties in, I believe, really well with our capstone and how that final product, they're growing it as they go in the program, and how they can take that with them and apply it innovatively.
Well, I think I will be speaking something that every music educator currently knows is coming down the pipe. If they haven't already been asked to do something more contemporary or popular, they're going to be. And I could speak to this as boots on the ground, as somebody who, with a different colleague of mine from another institution, we have done the first all states of so many of the states, and it's spreading. When I say this, I should say all states in popular music, all states in more like what you might think of as modern band, or original music. The very first state was Florida, and I was a part of that with Candace Davenport, Mateo, and David Williams. And from that, every state now is starting to see what's happening, and they're very interested. They don't have any information as to how to run these things. So this program is going to be, even if you have a master's, this is a second master's you could get in a very specific area that you're going to need to be an expert in. In terms of the capstone project, I think this is great. And we do this here at the undergraduate level with our final project. It is our philosophy as educators is not, here's your cookie cutter, you need to fit in, and this is what it's going to look like. It's, hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to create? What do you want to build? Let's give you tools to surround your goals and show us. Put the proof in your business plan, show us what you would like to do, and support it with evidence. So in a way, it is variable, as many doctoral projects are, like your thesis is your thesis, and our joy is supporting you build that. So this whole degree ends with that capstone project, and you're going to spend a lot of time really thinking how you want to make a difference with this education in your personal professional community. So I'm really excited to see like all the variety of things that come through at that point.
Right. Raina, thank you so much for that. And thank you, panelists, for everything that you've contributed to this session. It has been so meaningfully and enriching to me, and hopefully everyone in the audience. We appreciate you for being here. So finishing us off here, you like what you see? I hope you did, because we love what we do here at the Frost School of Music. You are absolutely welcome to please go ahead, submit your application. the submissions deadline is August 14th. Here we go. We're showing you here. August 14th is the final item, is the final submission deadline for our applications, okay? And finally, just some key points here. You'll get 50% off for being part of our first inaugural class of tuition. And
You can't
then
beat that, folks. 50% off.
50% off. I'm serious. It's really, it's for real. And then of course, speak to one of our live enrollment advisors. You have phone number here. And they also are able to connect with you via chat. QR code, should you want to snap it quickly and start your application. We're excited to have you as part of the online popular music pedagogy Masters of Arts program here at the University of Miami Frost School of Music, Frost Online, through the U Online division at UM. So we appreciate you all, and thank you, panelists, again.
Thank you so
Bye.
much,
Thank
Andrea.
you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.